morning everybody. Today's topic is difference between private company and the public company. So again, this particular topic shall have certain bases on which we can differentiate between the two. That is how a private company is formed or how a public company is being formed. To begin with the first one, we have the basis as in minimum number of members that are required in a private company and in a public company. So in order to start a private company, I require minimum 2 people. But in order to start a public company, I require minimum 7 people. So this is in the process of registration only. When I'll go to the registrar of companies, I need to have these 2 and 7 members, because until unless I have these 2, I cannot get my business registered into company form. Number second can be on the basis of maximum number of members. How many members in total I can have in a private company and in that of a public company. So in order to have a private company, the maximum number of members is 200. I cannot have more than 200 members in my private company. Now this word 200 doesn't include my employees. This doesn't include any other person. So members here mean shareholders. That means all those who have provided the capital to the company. So a private company can maximum have 200 shareholders. Whereas when we are talking about a public company, there is no limit on the maximum number of members. I can have infinite number of members in my company. Number third is capital. What is minimum amount of capital that is required to start a private company and the public company? In order to start a private company, I require minimum 1 lakh capital. But whereas in order to start a public company, I require minimum 5 lakh capital. Next one is on the basis of minimum number of directors that are required to register a private company and the public company. Minimum number of directors that is required to start a private company is 2. I can have more directors, but minimum at the point of registration there is 2 directors required. But when we are talking about a public company, the minimum number of directors required in the process of registration is 3 directors. With these directors, I can start my business. On the basis of, we can talk about maximum that we say, maximum number of directors are same in both the form of companies. There is no difference between on the basis of maximum number of directors. Next we say about on the basis of transferability of shares. Are shares transferable at all, or are there certain restrictions, or they are not transferable at all? So on the basis of this point, the first is that is private company. The shares are transferable, but with a certain amount of restrictions. That means the shares are restrictively transferred. In order to transfer my share in the form of private company, I need to have the opinion of the other shareholders also. But when we are talking about the transferability of shares in a public company, there is no restriction. There is complete freedom given to the shareholders. Whenever they want to transfer their share, to whomsoever they want to transfer their share, they can be freely transferred. Next we move to prospectus. And is it required in these 2 companies and what it is used for? So to define that, a prospectus means any document, any advertisement, any notice through which the company can subscribe, like tell the public to subscribe to its share. That is, it is an invitation that you're giving that come and provide the capital in my company. In a private company, since the maximum number of shareholders can only be 200, it doesn't require any such document to be printed in the general public to be approached by so many people. So a private company does not require any printing of prospectus. It will have its shareholders to subscribe to its shares through the private contacts only. It is not a private placement of share. Private placement of share. That means I am placing the shares to my personal contacts. Whereas a public company, since they can have abundance of shareholders, there is no limit on total number of shareholders, it would require to print this document so that it can approach the general public. Next one is on the basis of retirement of the directors. How they are supposed to retire and what is the total number of quantity of shares that the directors that will retire in a particular phase. Now in a private company, there is no restriction on how many directors are supposed to retire in what year. But in a public company, there is a restriction. That means out of the total number of directors that I have in my company, minimum 2/3 of the total strength of directors, they need to retire by rotation. This word rotation means in every annual general meeting, these directors, they have to vacate their positions. Now, it is not said in the company law that those directors who are retired or they are retiring, they cannot be reappointed. They can definitely be reappointed, but they need to vacate their position. Reason is because when you are governing a company which has a huge amount of capital, these directors might indulge into unfavorable practices and use the funds and resources of the company for their personal benefit. So in order to avoid this, there is a provision in companies law which says the directors have to retire for a minimum 2/3 of the total strength need to retire in every year. Next, on the basis of the basis is quorum. Now, the word quorum means minimum number of people that are present to start a meeting. So when we are talking about a private company, since it can be formed by minimum 2 people, so answer is exactly same. In order to start any meeting, be it annual general meeting or any meeting, I require a minimum 2 people. If 2 people are present, I can start my meeting. But for a public company, it would be injustice because you have so many people in your company, there is no limit. So quorum needs to be fixed that in order to start my any meeting, where all my decision making would be done, all the issues would be discussed. So how many members can I have when I wish to start any meeting to discuss the further issues? So for a public company, it is divided into 3 basic parts. Parting has been done on the basis of members that I have in my company. So these members can range from 0 to 1000, 1000 to 5000 and 5000 and above. So if I am having in a public company members starting from 0 to 1000, that is up to 1000 if I have, I require minimum 5 members to start a meeting. Number second is if my members range from 1000 to 5000, I require minimum 15 people to start any meeting. And for category number 3, that is if I have members above 5000 in my own company, how many particular people are required to start a particular meeting in my company? I require 30. Now, why these have been specified? There is a concept. When you are dealing with such a public at large, you want the opinion of everybody to be incorporated, or even if not everybody, but a greater proportion of people should be there to represent their views. That's the only way quorum is decided. That means these number of people need to be present if I wish to discuss something. Now, question arises, if I do not have these minimum number of people present in my annual general meeting, then what will happen? So, company law also specifies that if I don't have these number of people, my meeting cannot continue. I need to end that meeting very time. So, how this meeting can be rescheduled? It is said that in the next week, same day, same time and same place, this meeting can be rescheduled because it didn't have minimum number of people, which is known as quorum. Moving with the next one, can we have a difference on the basis of remuneration I can provide to my directors? Is there a maximum limit? So in a private company, there is no limit. I can give any amount of remuneration to my directors, to my managers, to my whole-time directors. Nothing has been said. But when we are talking about a public company, there is a restriction. The total restriction is my total remuneration cannot exceed more than 11% of the total net profit in the last financial year. Now, why this concept is there? Because a public company has a huge amount of capital, huge number of resources at its own disposal. So if it's going to give a huge amount of money in the form of salaries and remuneration to its employees only, there would be little amount left for the other things, that is to plow back in the business, to provide as a dividend to the shareholders and for different things. So with this only, there is a restriction of maximum it cannot exceed 11% of the net profits. Next one, we talk about, are companies allowed to accept public deposits? So when we are talking about private company and public company in the form of public deposits, a private company cannot accept public deposit. Reason is because it cannot have more than 200 members, so it will never issue a prospectus. But when we are talking about a public company, it can have infinite number of membership, so there is no restriction on that. A public company can accept public deposits of any amount and from any people, its own choice. So there is no restriction to offer for a public company, whereas when we talk about private company, there are restriction. A private company is not allowed to accept any public deposits. So let's give a quick revision on the basis of what we can differentiate between private and the public company. First one was the members, that is minimum and maximum. Next we talk about the capital that is required. Then further we talked about the directors, that is minimum number of directors which is required to have a private company and the public company. Then on the basis of transferability of shares, issuing of prospectus, retirement of directors, the minimum quorum required to start a meeting, the total amount of remuneration that I can provide, and finally whether I can ask for public deposits or not. Thank you so much. Have a great day.